Namaskar and welcome to Midday Prime. We'll continue to be putting into perspective the Citizenship Amendment Act and its fallout. Protests against the act on certain university campuses in the country continue, and they had turned violent on Sunday in Jamia Millia University. This and more in Midday Prime today. Let's begin with the headlines. The Supreme Court refuses to entertain the Jamia and AMU students' plea, asks the petitioners to approach the respective high courts and says that if not satisfied, then move the Supreme Court. Delhi police arrests 10 people in connection with the violence and arson in the national capital on Sunday. No student is arrested. Video of night of the December 15th is released. Officers seen appealing to the protesters to keep peace and calm, and the police hints at a conspiracy angle and says that the protesters were ready with wet blankets. Stone pelting did not look spontaneous. The situation in Assam improved substantially. Curfew in Guwahati is completely withdrawn. Broadband internet services resume from today. The Supreme Court is set to hear the review petition, in fact, of one of the convicts of the Nirbhaya gang rape case and murder case who is on death row. Delhi's court likely to pronounce today the quantum of punishment on the former MLA Kuldeep Singh in the Unnao rape case. Campaign intensifies for the fifth and last phase of Jharkhand Assembly polls. The Prime Minister addresses a rally in Barhet, and other bigwigs are also hitting the campaign trail. And a special court has handed the death penalty to the former Pakistani military dictator Prez in a high treason case. Musharraf was facing charges relating to the imposition of extra-constitutional emergency in November of 2007. So our top story is about the Supreme Court and Jamia protests, and the Supreme Court on Tuesday said that high courts should be approached first on pleas alleging police atrocities on persons protesting against the amended Citizenship Act. The court also asked as to how buses were burnt during the protests. A bench headed by the Chief Justice S.A. Bobde commenced hearing on pleas, including that of the Alumni Association of Jamia Millia Islamia University. The bench said that it did not want to spend time knowing facts and asked the petitioners to go to the courts below first. The counsel for the petitioners had said that FIRs have been filed one after another against students of AMU and Jamia, upon which the Supreme Court said that the FIRs are to be filed under the law for offences such as destruction of property. Now further, the Supreme Court made it clear that it is not going to rely on newspapers to arrive at judicial decisions, while refusing to consider the statements of the Jamia Varsity Vice-Chancellor to the press. Meanwhile, the Home Ministry has clarified that there was no bullet fired by the police in their controlling of the violent protests against the Citizenship Amendment Act at the Jamia Millia Islamia University on Sunday. 10 persons with a criminal background were detained, and more antisocial elements are being tracked as per the information in a Delhi police report submitted to the Home Ministry. Several vehicles, including buses, were burnt down and public property was destroyed during the protests on Sunday, and according to a senior police officer, no student has been arrested. The university had turned into a battlefield on Sunday as the police entered the campus and also used force following a protest against the Citizenship Amendment Act, which led to violence and arson, in which 4 DTC buses, 100 private vehicles and 10 police bikes were damaged. So what has the MHA said? What has the MHA said? Let's take a look at what the MHA has said. Very clearly, they've put out a clarification. The Ministry of Home Affairs has simply said that no bullet was fired from the Delhi police during the Jamia protest. No bullet. So there was no firing that took place. They also clarified on various other points the 10 persons who've been detained they have a criminal background. That says something as well. They have a criminal background, which means that they obviously were not students. That's important. More antisocial elements are being tracked. That's what the MHA is doing. So we can see a sequence and a logical sequence to what is happening there, what happened in fact. And they also released a video of what happened on Sunday. In fact, let's take a look at that video.
मैं आपसे अपील करता हूं कि आप लोग बिल्कुल पत्थर नहीं चलाएं। लगातार ये पत्थर हम लोगों पे आ रहे हैं। हम लोग आपकी
In fact, we are getting in live footage now of a press conference being conducted by the Delhi police. Let's go across straight there now.
On the roadside. So what is all about that? Do you think that the firing happened from the protesters?
That is a subject matter of investigation where we are looking into this aspect also.
Anti-cartels were found or not? Sir, anti-cartels were found or not?
I cannot comment upon the investigation that is in progress.
ये क्या करना है जो 10 लोगों की गिरफ्तारी जो लोग इस प्रोटेस्ट में किस लिए
इनका प्रोफाइल क्या है? 10 लोगों का ये कौन है, क्या क्रिमिनल बैकग्राउंड है, क्या है?
क्या इनको बुलाया था किसी ने? कैसे है?
ये तमाम चीजें अभी ये इन्वेस्टिगेशन का विषय है। उनका इन्वॉल्वमेंट पाए जाने पर उनकी गिरफ्तारी हुई है और ये तमाम चीजें अभी दोनों केसों की जो तफ्तीश जो इन्वेस्टिगेशन चलेगी उसके दौरान बाकी चीजें भी उसमें मालूमात की जाएंगी।
इनको स्पेशली यहाँ पर जाकर के पथराव करने के लिए
मैं पहले भी बता रहा हूँ कि ये तमाम चीजें इन्वेस्टिगेशन की शुरुआत हुई है, इन्वेस्टिगेशन खत्म नहीं हुआ और ये तमाम चीजें इन्वेस्टिगेशन का विषय है। जैसे जैसे फैक्ट सामने आते जाएंगे तो उसी हिसाब से इन्वेस्टिगेशन प्रोसीड करेंगे।
आपको लग रहा है कि ये जो प्रोटेस्ट है बात आ रही है प्लान था, पत्थर मिले, सब तमाम चीजों के कई बयान भी आ रहे हैं इसको लेकर के।
देखिए, जिस तरीके से ये मॉब वायलेंस सड़क पे हुआ, आप लोगों ने काफी इसमें तस्वीरें भी देखी होंगी। जिस तरह से सरकारी संपत्ति को तोड़ना, आग लगाना, पुलिस की गाड़ी को आग लगाना और भारी पथराव करना, यहाँ तक कि इलाके के रेसिडेंट्स के घर के शीशे भी टूटे, उसमें पब्लिक लोगों के भी इसमें काफी कारें या गाड़ियां उसमें डैमेज किया गया और इतनी भारी संख्या में पत्थर यहाँ पर मौजूद कहीं पर नहीं था। तो ये एक विषय है, इन्वेस्टिगेशन का विषय है कि इस प्रकार की चीजें और हाथ में डंडा इत्यादि इनके हाथ में कैसे आया। और हमने ये भी सूचना है कि जहां पर ये इकट्ठा हुए थे उसी पास में ऐसे पत्थर, बड़े बड़े पत्थर का एक बोरा भी मिलने का हमें एक कॉल भी मिली थी। तो ये कि इसके पीछे क्या था, ये प्लानिंग थी, क्या था, इसके ये इन्वेस्टिगेशन का विषय है। लेकिन मैं ये कहना चाहूंगा कि ये मॉब जो प्रदर्शन करने के नाम पर आई थी और उसके बाद जिस तरह से इन्होंने ये तुरंत वायलेंट होकर के जिस तरह से आगजनी और नुकसान किया और जिस प्रकार से उपद्रव मचाया, ये कोई स्पॉन्टेनियस है या ये प्री-प्लान
है? Delhi police is lying. What was the communication between Delhi police and the university administration during the protest to enter the campus, or what is the exact status? Can you brief us?
I have already stated this before the media in the last 2 days. I have been telling this that when we are pushing this violent.
Well, we've lost live footage, but let's play out now this new video that was released by the Delhi police pertaining to the protests on Sunday.
मैं आपसे अपील करता हूं कि आप लोग बिल्कुल पत्थर नहीं चलाएं। लगातार ये पत्थर हम लोगों पे आ रहे हैं। हम लोग आपकी सुरक्षा के लिए हैं। आपके बीच जो ये गलत लड़के पहुंचे हुए हैं और जो पत्थर, ट्यूब और ये बम, पत्थर और ट्यूब जैसी ट्यूबलाइट वगैरह ये सब फेंक रहे हैं, गाड़ियों को तोड़फोड़ रहे हैं। मैं ये चाहता हूं कि आप लोग बाहर निकले, आपके नुमाइंदे बाहर आए और हमसे बात करें। यहाँ पे तमाम अफसर, तमाम लोग हैं जो आप लोगों की हिफाजत के लिए हैं। कोई भी ऐसी चीज नहीं करे जिससे इस यूनिवर्सिटी का नाम बदनाम हो, इस इलाके का नाम खराब हो। ये लड़के लगातार पत्थर मार रहे हैं। अब पुलिस बिल्कुल, हम लोग किसी पे कोई कार्रवाई नहीं कर रहे हैं। हम लोग ये चाह रहे हैं कि आप लोग आए। मैं ये चाहूंगा कि जो लोग यूनिवर्सिटी प्रशासन के हैं, जो लोग यूनिवर्सिटी के ग्रुप लीडर्स हैं, देखिए साइड में से पत्थर मत मारिए, नहीं तो फिर मजबूरन हमें फिर बल का प्रयोग करना पड़ेगा। मैं ये चाहूंगा कि आप लोग ये फिर जो पत्थर आ रहे हैं, ट्यूब आ रही है और ये सारी चीजें जो है इसको आप बिल्कुल नहीं करें। ये दोनों तरफ से जो आ रहे हैं ये आप ही के लिए नुकसानदेह होगा, ये यहाँ की शांति व्यवस्था को बरकरार नहीं करने देगा। मैं आपसे ये गुजारिश करता हूँ, मैं ये रिक्वेस्ट करता हूँ कि आप लोग आए और बाहर निकलें और हम लोगों के साथ बात करें या अपने साथ जो ये लोग हैं उनको रोकें। ये बोतल फेंकने का, ये ट्यूब फेंकने का बिल्कुल वो नहीं करें।
उसको एक तरफ जाएं या तो उस साइड जाएं या पीछे से और फोर्स आ जाए, अब नहीं तो सारे पिलर्स पे फंस जाएंगे।
तो बोलो कि पीछे से और फोर्स।
हाँ, तो
लीजिए, ऑन कर लीजिएगा। मैं यूनिवर्सिटी की सिक्योरिटी और एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन और टीचर से भी ये दरख्वास्त करूंगा कि वो लोग आए, ये बच्चा आगे नहीं आए, ये बच्चा बिल्कुल आगे नहीं आए। गैस गन नहीं है क्या? चला दे सर। है? बिल्कुल नहीं।
सर ये लड़के यही नजदीक में है सर।
ये गैस
सर आगे ये पेड़ के नीचे होगा सर, ये ना
बोलो कि गैस गन और चाहिए ना। बच्चों मैं ये गेट नंबर 7 और 8 के बीच में खड़े हो। बच्चों आप लोग बाहर नहीं निकले। बच्चों पत्थर नहीं मारे, ट्यूब नहीं मारे, बोतल नहीं फेंके। आप लोग अपना, बच्चों कोई बात नहीं, आप लोग अपना अंदर शांति से बैठे रहे, बिल्कुल पत्थर नहीं चलाए, ट्यूब और ये बोतलें नहीं मारे। पहले ले लो। मैं आप लोगों से ये अनुरोध करता हूं, मैं आप लोगों से बेटा ये गुजारिश करता हूं, मैं 6 नंबर गेट के सामने आप लोगों से ये गुजारिश करता हूं कि ये दोनों तरफ से जो पत्थर आप लोग चला रहे हैं ये बिल्कुल ठीक बात नहीं है। आपके प्रॉक्टर, आपके जो सिक्योरिटी स्टाफ है उन सब से हमारी बात हो रही है। आप लोग भी अमनो अमान रखें। ये जो बच्चे बाहर आए हुए हैं मैं कहूंगा कि अंदर जाए, ये पत्थर बेटा बिल्कुल नहीं चलाए।
Well, we'll return to the story, but let's go across live to Jharkhand now, where the Prime Minister is campaigning for the 5th and last phase of the elections, which will be held on the 20th.
आप देखिए, इतनी दूर दूर से जहां भी मेरी नजर पहुंचे लोग ही लोग हैं, लोग ही लोग हैं। इतनी बड़ी तादाद में आप मुझे यहां आशीर्वाद देने आए हैं। हम सबको आशीर्वाद देने हैं। आपका यही स्नेह, आपका यही आशीर्वाद तो जेएमएम, कांग्रेस, आरजेडी और देश भर के वामपंथियों को परेशान करता है, उनकी नींद हराम कर देता है। मोदी को, भाजपा को मिल रहा देश का प्यार इनको पच नहीं रहा है। इनको ये समझ ही नहीं आ रहा है कि जिन बातों को लेकर दशकों तक देश को इन्होंने डराया, वो आखिर झूठ क्यों साबित हुई? सब झूठ चलाया था। अब सच उजागर होकर के आ गया है कि अगर सबसे ज्यादा सुरक्षा कहीं है तो ये भाजपा की सरकारों में ही है। वे इस बात से परेशान हैं कि आखिर जिन मामलों को इन्हें दशकों तक लटकाए रखा, ऐसे मसले जो लटके पड़े थे, लोगों को भी चिंतित कर देते थे, उत्तेजित कर देते थे, परेशान कर देते थे, ऐसे उलझे हुए मामलों को आज मोदी ने कैसे सुलझा दिया। साथियों, ये हमारा बरहेट में राम जानकी विराजमान है। और भगवान राम जी ने 14 साल वनवास में आदिवासियों के बीच में अपनी जिंदगी गुजारी थी। और इसलिए यहां भव्य श्रद्धा केंद्र राम जी का मंदिर है। अब आप मुझे बताइए, अयोध्या में राम जन्मभूमि का मामला इतने सालों से लटक रहा, इतने सालों से लटकता रहा, इसका समाधान होना चाहिए था कि नहीं होना चाहिए था? ये मसला शांति से सुलझना चाहिए था कि नहीं चाहिए था? सत्य के मार्ग पर सबको चलना चाहिए था कि नहीं चलना चाहिए था? लेकिन क्यों नहीं हुआ? क्योंकि वो वही काम करते थे जिसमें उनकी राजनीति की रोटियां सेकते रहे। इसलिए नहीं हुआ क्योंकि इसका हल कांग्रेस और उसके साथी कभी नहीं चाहते थे। लटकाना, भटकाना, इसी में उनकी राजनीति की खिचड़ी पकती थी। वो राजनीति करते रहे, सबको डराते रहे और देश अयोध्या में राम मंदिर का इंतजार करता रहा। मेरे प्यारे भाइयों बहनों, हम राष्ट्र नीति पर चले और अयोध्या में एक भव्य राम मंदिर के निर्माण का रास्ता आज साफ हो गया। भाइयों बहनों, कहीं कोई तनाव हुआ क्या? कहीं कोई तनाव हुआ क्या? कोई दंगा हुआ क्या? मारपीट हुई क्या? शांति से हुआ कि नहीं हुआ? देश में सब काम शांति से होने चाहिए कि नहीं होने चाहिए? अब मोदी शांति से सब करने के लिए कोशिश कर रहा है तो उनके पेट में चूहे दौड़ रहे हैं। भाइयों और बहनों, आर्टिकल 370 को लेकर भी इन्होंने यही डर दिखाया, अगर 370 को हाथ लगाए गए तो करंट लग जाएगा, करंट, बवाल हो जाएगा, देश का टुकड़ा हो जाएगा। यही बोलते थे ना, यही डर दिखाते थे ना। उन्होंने जम्मू कश्मीर में अलगाव को बढ़ने दिया, आतंकवाद बढ़ने दिया, वहां से पंडितों को निकाले गए, ये देखते रह गए, लेकिन निर्णय नहीं किया, फैसला नहीं लिया। आपने जब इस सेवक को फिर आदेश दिया तो आर्टिकल 370 भी निकाल गया और शांतिपूर्ण तरीके से आज कश्मीर आगे बढ़ने लग गया।
Prime Minister there campaigning in Barhat in Jharkhand, and the Prime Minister there basically targeting the Congress party on the issue of the Ram Mandir, saying that the Congress party was not interested in solving this problem at all because it suited their political interests to keep the pot boiling. That was the gist of what he was saying, and he was also speaking about Article 370 and the desire of the opposition parties, he said, to instigate sort of protests against these decisions, firm decisions taken by the government. Now let's come back to our main story, and our main story is about protests, and they continue outside the Jamia Millia University, and this is the second consecutive day. The protests have been peaceful, and this since that demonstration on Sunday, which had turned violent. Now some residents and parents of students from nearby areas also came out in support of the protesters. Well, the students are demanding the withdrawal of CAA. Let's listen to what the police have said. The DCP, additional DCP of Southeast, Kumar Gyanesh, has given an eyewitness account of what happened at Jamia. He said, in fact, that some of the protesters were carrying wet blankets and they were putting them on their eyes to protect them from tear gas. To minimize that impact, the police had concurred that these things do not happen on the spot, and it showed that this was a conspiracy.
में जो 2 दिन पहले वायलेंस काफी अधिक हुआ, उस पे जो केस दर्ज हुआ, उसकी इनिशियल इन्वेस्टिगेशन, इनफैक्ट जो सारी चीजें उभर के सामने आई हैं, फर्स्ट डे भी हम लोगों ने आपसे पहले शेयर किया है कि जिस तरह का पथराव और रिएक्शंस और उनका हमला था पुलिस पर, वो स्पॉन्टेनियस नहीं, वेल प्लान्ड लग रहा था। मैं उसमें ऑपरेशन का हिस्सा था, तो मैंने देखा कि कई लोग गीले कंबल कैरी कर रहे थे और टीयर गैस शेल जब उनको बहुत हेवी पथराव होने पर उनको पुश करने के लिए जब आंसू गैस का प्रयोग हो रहा था, तो गोले जो जा रहे थे उसको गीले कंबल से ढक रहे थे, पेट्रोल बॉम्ब भी फेंक रहे थे, और ये सब चीजें ऑन स्पॉट नहीं होती हैं। तो इसे जरूर ये क्लियर हो रहा था कि वेल प्लान्ड या फिर रादर ये सोची समझी साजिश है। इनिशियल इन्वेस्टिगेशन में भी अभी तक तो उसी दिशा में हमारी तफ्तीश जा रही है। मैं इस बात को अपने 100% कह सकता हूं, मैंने अपनी आंखों से देखा है। गीले कंबल थे और बड़े वो भी आदमियों को, जो एक पर्टिकुलर आदमी था जो वही गीले कंबल को बार बार दौड़ के जो अश्रु गैस के गोले छोड़े गए थे उनको ढकता था ताकि उसका इम्पैक्ट कम हो। तो गीले कंबल का इस्तेमाल किया जा रहा था टू मिनिमाइज द इफेक्ट ऑफ गैस गन्स। लग रहा है कि प्री प्लान्ड है या फिर तैयारी की गई थी, तो बेशक हम मेन कॉन्स्पिरेटर तक जरूर जाएंगे।
And our correspondent Vikas Sarthi now joins us on the phone line from the Supreme Court. Well, Vikas, the Supreme Court has made it clear that the petitioner should go to the High Courts first before approaching the Supreme Court, and they've not given any clear direction as to what should be done and with regard to the violence that occurred on Sunday. Can you fill us in with the details?
Well, Mark Bastiji has said that the best way to address this issue will be that all these petitioners must approach the High Court concerned, because a fact-finding committee constituted by Supreme Court cannot visit all places, because these kind of incidents have happened many places. So to appoint a fact-finding committee and that then it will go each and every place and will collect evidence and record evidences. These things are not practical. So because of that, court said that the best way will be that petitioners must approach High Court, and court said that we are confident enough that High Court will look into all these issues and will pass the appropriate directions as and when required. Apart from it, court refused other prayers, like court didn't give any kind of protection from arrest. Court said that police is doing its job and we cannot pass any stay, we cannot give any stay, we cannot pass any order that police must not stay, police must not arrest anyone. So let police do their job, but meanwhile Supreme Court has asked all the petitioners to approach High Court.
Right, and apart from that, with regard to the Citizenship Amendment Act itself and the appeals that have, the PILs that have come to the Supreme Court, what's going to be done with that? When will that be heard? And could the protesters at least look at this particular appeal within the Supreme Court as part of maybe even adding some of their own arguments into the case?
Well, so far the petitions are concerned, there were several petitions filed by the ex-students of AMU and Jamia, and some petitions are filed by the students who are studying in Jamia and AMU at present. So these petitions were clubbed together, and more or less the grounds were same in all those petitions, and they want that there must be a fact-finding committee which must be constituted by the Supreme Court, and this fact-find committee will find what is the truth, what are the facts behind all these incidents of violence, because as of now students are saying that they are being wrongly blamed for all these violent incidents. They were peacefully protesting, and police action was unwarranted. So they have their own version, but police said that police acted only in self-defense, and when incident of destruction of public property was increasing hour by hour, then only police acted and detained some of these miscreants. And apart from it, Center also informed, Delhi police also informed the court that they have not arrested any student. No student is in police custody as of now. And apart from it, the injured students are being given free treatment at hospitals in Delhi NCR, and Center also assured the Supreme Court that their aim is not to target the peacefully protesting students. The police acted only against miscreants who pelted at the police force, and they were destroying the public property out there. So Center and police defended their action that was an act of self-defense, and there was no intention of harming any student. Apart from it, Solicitor General also told the Supreme Court that with the request of the proctor of Jamia, only after that police entered into the campus. So it is wrong to say that police entered in the campus on its own. In fact, proctor asked the police to come and detain the miscreants, and these facts were placed before the bench of the CJI. And Chief Justice said that the best way is to ask High Courts to look into all these issues, and to look into all these issues, and High Courts will pass appropriate directions if needed.
Right. Let's now go across to our correspondent Neeraj Singh, who's joining us from outside the Jamia Millia Islamia University. Well, Neeraj, what's the situation like? 2 days of peaceful protests is what reports have been saying.
देखिए बिल्कुल इस समय हम जामिया के बिल्कुल गेट पर ही हैं, और हमारे कैमरामैन आपको दिखाएंगे जो तमाम जो स्टूडेंट हैं वो इस समय शांतिपूर्ण तरीके से जो अपना विरोध प्रदर्शन है वो इस समय जामिया के जो गेट है, यूनिवर्सिटी का जो गेट है वहाँ पर कर रहे हैं। और इन स्टूडेंटों का ये मानना है कि इनके साथ जो दिल्ली पुलिस है उसने जो कार्रवाई की है वो ठीक नहीं की है, और दिल्ली पुलिस यूनिवर्सिटी के परिसर के अंदर घुसी है। लेकिन जिस तरीके से दिल्ली पुलिस ने भी अपना वीडियो जारी किया है और इसमें स्पष्ट कर दिया है कि दिल्ली पुलिस ने पहले तमाम वार्निंगें दी थी स्टूडेंटों को, ये कहा था कि जो स्टूडेंट हैं वो हिंसक ना हो। और आपने देखा होगा कि जब दिल्ली पुलिस की तरफ से जब ये कहा गया कि जो स्टूडेंट हैं उसमें जो कुछ बाहरी जो लोग हैं वो हो सकते हैं जिसकी वजह से जो हिंसा भड़की, क्योंकि किसी स्टूडेंट का जो नाम है वो अभी तक सामने नहीं आया है। तो निश्चित तौर पर जो स्टूडेंट हैं वो अपना शांतिपूर्ण तरीके से जो प्रोटेस्ट है वो इस समय कर रहे हैं, और हमारे कैमरामैन दिखाएंगे कि सैकड़ों की संख्या में जो स्टूडेंट हैं वो इस समय जामिया के गेट पर मौजूद हैं। और दूसरा सबसे बड़ी बात है कि दिल्ली पुलिस ने स्पष्ट किया है कि जब वो यहाँ पर पहुंची थी दोनों तरफ से उस पर पथराव हो रहा था, और उस पथराव के बाद ही जो मिनिमम जो फोर्स है वो दिल्ली पुलिस ने इस्तेमाल की। निश्चित तौर पर दिल्ली पुलिस के सामने भी ऐसी स्थिति थी कि बड़े पैमाने पर जो सरकारी संपत्तियां उसका नुकसान हो रहा था, और अगर पुलिस थोड़ी बहुत फोर्स इस्तेमाल नहीं करती तो शायद बहुत ज़्यादा नुकसान हो सकता था। लेकिन अभी कह सकते हैं कि अच्छी बात है कि शांतिपूर्ण तरीके से प्रोटेस्ट हो रहा है, क्योंकि लोकतंत्र में हर किसी को अनुमति है कि वो शांतिपूर्ण तरीके से प्रोटेस्ट हो। लेकिन अगर हिंसा की जाएगी तो दिल्ली पुलिस का कहना है कि उनके खिलाफ सख्त से सख्त कार्रवाई की जाएगी, चाहे वो कोई स्टूडेंट हो, चाहे कोई बाहरी हो, या कोई भी पॉलिटिकल पार्टी का लोग हो।
Right. Thanks very much, Neeraj Singh, for joining us and giving us those inputs. And we are joined in the studio by Ashok Tandon, senior journalist and well-known political commentator. Mr. Tandon, how do you view this situation now that there's clarification come out from the Delhi police? Also, the Supreme Court telling the petitioners, against the against what happened on Sunday. In fact, whatever happened on Sunday, they said go to the high courts. How do you view the developments since then?
The Supreme Court made a very pertinent observation yesterday that the violence and the rule of law can't go together. The peace must be restored first before we could even give a chance to the petitioner to put their case, and yes, that was very important observation. And at the same time, the Supreme Court today also observed that the petitioners are coming against incidents in various parts of the country, and therefore Supreme Court is not a first court of inquiry.
Absolutely.
And since the petitions are in respect of different places, so it will be prudent on the part of the petitioner to go to the respective courts in the state. It could be either a lower level court or even the high court in the state. So at least the Supreme Court should not be made a first court of inquiry, and I think the petitioners, the bunch of petitioners were perhaps trying to plead for a Supreme Court led inquiry into the Jamia incident or incidents of violence in other parts of the country. That was not entertained by the Supreme Court, and therefore now they have been advised to go to various high courts in the country, and then if they are aggrieved, they are not satisfied, then obviously Supreme Court doors are always open. So that was one set of the observations made by the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court will be listening to the petition which are challenging the Citizens Amendment Act. That is separate.
That is separate.
Right now, the petition before the Supreme Court were in respect of the violent incidents in certain parts of the country. Now, in that context, the petitioner may not be satisfied, but I think a very clear guideline has been set by the Supreme Court that for any matter, the people or the petitioner or the aggrieved parties should not be rushing all the time to the Supreme Court of India. So in that context, I think a very constructive guideline has been set. Having said that, the situation in particularly in Jamia and in the context of the violent incidents on Sunday, quite a lot of picture has been cleared with the video which has been released by the police, and as well as the clarifications given by the police officers. But one thing which has come out very significant is that the 10 persons who have been arrested, they all are non-students and they have a criminal track record. Now, and it shows that the students of Jamia were taken for a ride by certain antisocial elements, and in the garb of joining the students, they were indulging in violence, and therefore it's a lesson for the student community also to be on guard, whether when they are making a very peaceful protest, which is their fundamental right, anti-social elements should not be, misusing their campus and also exploiting them to indulge in violence. That picture, of course, the details would come out only when the inquiry is complete.
Absolutely.
But now an inquiry has been instituted. This aspect of anti-social elements entering the campus, exploiting the students, and also providing them all sorts of objectionable material like petrol bombs or even stones, that also is a very important aspect which I think the student community all over the country must be they should be careful about it, and particularly I think it's a lesson for political parties also that they should be careful while protesting peacefully. They should not allow anti-social elements to take advantage of the situation.
Now, looking at what has happened because of those anti-social elements, the international press also seems to have picked up these events and have given it, maybe a half-baked analysis, and as a result of that, a certain viewpoint is being presented, which is, not presenting India in a very good light. So whoever has been, supporting the anti-social elements, whether whether they are political parties or certain political interests itself, because the opposition is against the CAA. A large chunk of the opposition is against the CAA and will probably look at any opportunity to put the government or to embarrass the government and probably take advantage of a situation like this. I mean, this is just logical analysis.
No, opposition and for that matter every citizen has a fundamental right to lodge a peaceful protest against any decision of the government.
Yes, yes.
In fact, the opposition was also united in opposing the bill in both houses of parliament. Well, that is their right. But the question is, the protest even outside parliament has to be peaceful in a parliamentary democracy like India, and that I think all political parties are conscious of this fact. But they should also learn a lesson from what happened in Jamia, that anti-social elements always try to take advantage of all the peaceful protests, whether it is by political parties or by students. But in this particular case, it appears that a section of the opposition political parties are trying to make a political capital out of it,
Yes.
and in that context, they also are in a way exploiting the students or provoking them to come on the streets and enter into some kind of a violent protest. So I think, as you very rightly said, India is a vibrant democracy. We have a free press. There is all freedom of speech and expression. For peaceful protest also there is a provision.
Right.
But if we indulge into this kind of violent incidents,
Yes.
and that brings a bad name to the country, I think that is the responsibility of every citizen of this country, particularly the political parties. They should also realize that what kind of picture is being painted about India outside our country.
Right, and the Delhi police now, I mean, has come out today, but one would ask, why didn't they come out with this kind of evidence yesterday? Why didn't they actually tell the story right up front? Because they were giving press conferences right after the event took place. They could have given all the information and cleared the doubts. Otherwise, perhaps, they would, because over this period of time, the police was painted in a rather bad light by much of the media, I mean, across the board in a sense, and they took some time to actually clarify their position that they were actually acting in self-defense in most cases, and they acted on standard operating procedures. They gave suitable warnings. They asked for peace. They told the children to they called them bachcho, things like that. It's basically they were treating them like following the right procedures.
But unfortunately, the rumors mongering which took place on Sunday, whole day and night, and also the misuse of the social media by a section of the people, I think that led to a very delicate situation, and perhaps the police was not very conscious about the fact that a lot of rumors are being spread about what is going on in Jamia, and that included all sorts of half-baked news and also certain exaggerated versions of what was going on. So I think social media is also a very significant platform about which every citizen should be careful.
Yes.
People should not believe in the social media rumors or otherwise the rumor being spread by the anti-social elements. I think it's a collective responsibility of the entire society, and it was in that context that police perhaps was not aware of the rumor being spread, also what kind of a sinister campaign was going on the social media, and that's why perhaps they were late in explaining their position. But the fact remains that the police has clarified its position, but the important fact remains that the facts which are coming out in the inquiry are really eye-opener, that anti-social elements entered into the campus, took advantage of the students' peaceful protest and indulged into pre-planned violence.
Okay, we'll leave it there. Thank you very much, Mr. Ashok Tandon, for helping us understand how the situation has evolved since Sunday in in those protests that took place at the Jamia Millia Islamia University. Now let's move on to our next story. The curfew imposed in Guwahati on December 11 in the wake of the protests against the Citizenship Amendment Act. Those protests have been lifted. I beg your pardon, the curfew has been lifted. The curfew has been lifted, in fact, from 6 a.m. today, and the shops and business establishments were open in the city. Buses, cars, two-wheelers, they were all plying. The decision to lift the curfew in Guwahati was taken at a law and order review meeting chaired by the Chief Minister Sarbanand Sonowal on Monday. The state government has also launched helpline numbers. The state's disaster mission center is situated in Dispur, and a list of helpline numbers for citizens at times of emergency in Assam have also been released. Broadband internet connection in the entire state has been restored from today onwards. In Dibrugarh, the curfew has been relaxed for 14 hours from 6 a.m. today. Assam witnessed violent protests with many public properties being set ablaze or being damaged by the protesters. 5 persons also lost their lives since Wednesday. And a high-level inquiry has been set up in fact to probe into these incidents, to the recent violence in Assam. The Assam DGP, BJ Mahanta, has said that 136 cases have been registered so far in the state. 190 persons have been arrested for their alleged involvement in violence during the protests. He said that 4 people have been killed in police action. He assured that the situation is pretty much under control now.
Total number of 136 cases have been registered so far, and 190 protesters have been arrested of various kinds, like, people who involved. These are not normal democratic protesters. These are people who indulge in violence and perpetration of various kinds of acts of hooliganism and acts of violence. The situation right now is pretty normal. No violence is being seen. We have detained more than 3,000 people, and we have let go a whole lot of youngsters who had done protests, done some small vandalism, but then we had treated them with compassion. So I have appealed to the parents, not to ensure that, the kids do not come out on the street and their protest is taken over by some other vandals, some bad characters and miscreants. In police action, 4 people have got killed, unfortunately, and situation is pretty much under control now.
And Kamal Bora now joins us from Guwahati. Well, Kamal, the DGP there saying that the situation is pretty much under control. You're right there in the midst of everything. Tell us what you see around you.
Yes, as DGP was saying, situation is really under control. Even the protests are going on in many parts of the state. Situation is under control. The police administration is ready with 60 additional central paramilitary forces. If something arises, definitely they are going to tackle it very easily, they have said. And apart from this, the most important news of this day is that the mobile net service, internet service, which was disrupted due to this protest, might be resuming today, because there is a order. There is a order from. There is a news is coming from Guwahati High Court. 3 petition PIL were filed by one journalist, one businessman, and one lawyer regarding this internet disruptions. And High Court has said Assam government may consider this issue if some violent activities continues. Definitely they may disrupt it again. So this is the big news is coming from High Court. People who are having lots of trouble due to this disruption in mobile net service. Most probably it's going to lift the restriction over this internet service. And this is a very good news today. As far as other situations concerned, airport service is concerned, it is already in operation in all the airport stations. As far as Guwahati railway station is concerned, Assam rail service is concerned, definitely there are some problems still going on. The passenger service, which was totally suspended due to this protest, today partially the operations has been resumed, not fully but partially only resumed. Kolkata bound trains are still suspended. Overall, about 60 trains are still in cancellation. So this is the overall situation here in and if we see the other situation, overall situation, it is quite peaceful. Mark.
Yes, and Kamal, well, it obviously reveals as well that people have come to terms with the CAA, or even if they are protesting, they will be protesting in a peaceful manner from now onwards.
Yes, definitely protests are still going on, and even our police administration, even government is also saying that they are with the people who want to protest in a democratic way, but they are saying at the same time that there is no scope for those who want to vandalize, who want to go for vandalism, who want to create a very chaotic situation. They are not going to support those. Police administration, they are keeping a very close eyes on those elements who are trying to indulge in violent activities. And due to this, and there is a collective effort from all the stakeholders, even the protesting organizations also, they are appealing each and everyone not to carry any protest activities after 5 o'clock, because miscreants might take advantage in the darkness, and they are calling people to go for only democratic protest, not the violent protest. And due to this collective efforts only, we have seen this day today, and within a very short period of span of time, that Assam has again limping back to normalcy.
Thanks very much, Kamal Bora, for joining us from Guwahati with an update. Now let's move on to our next story. The CBI has sought life imprisonment for the convict Kuldeep Singh Sengar for raping a woman in Unnao in 2017. The agency has asked the court to give maximum punishment to Sengar, as it was a fight for justice of an individual against the system. The agency also sought adequate monetary compensation for the rape survivor. The court had on Monday convicted Sengar for rape under the Indian Penal Code and also the POCSO Act for an offence by a public servant committing penetrative sexual assault against a child. The T. Sazari court has adjourned the arguments on quantum of punishment for the 20th of this month and has also sought a copy of the affidavit of Kuldeep Singh Sengar filed during the 2017 election from the Election Commission. A special court in Pakistan has sentenced the former Pakistani military dictator Prez to death in a case of high treason. Now let's take a look at what that all means, because Pervez Musharraf in fact was sentenced to death for abrogating the constitution. He was sentenced to death for abrogating the constitution of the country. And that happened in 2007, where he imposed himself as the leader. The special court heard the high treason case against the former dictator. What is this special court? In fact, this special court was set up by the Pakistani Supreme Court on the orders of the Pakistani Supreme Court. So it has the sanction of the highest court of Pakistan. Pakistan government wanted to include the former Chief Justice Abdul Hamid Dogar as well, and some other people, including the former Law Minister Zahid Hamid, the former Prime Minister Shaukat Aziz, as co-conspirators along with Musharraf in this high treason case. The court had reserved its verdict in the long-running high treason trial last month. In fact, on December 5, the court had said that it would issue its verdict on December 17. That's happened today, and it has pronounced the death sentence. Treason case was initiated by the former Pakistani Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif, who was the man who was deposed by Musharraf when he became the military dictator, charged with imposing state of emergency in the country in November 2007. That was what Musharraf did. He imposed himself as the absolute leader, and then he became the president. He was first the military, he was the chief of army staff, and then he became the president. Musharraf left for Dubai in 2016 for medical treatment, and he has not returned since. In fact, he has not returned since. In March, he was admitted to a hospital in Dubai, and he is reported to be suffering from a spinal disorder. So this is the situation as far as Musharraf is concerned. You're watching Midday Prime, and it's time now for us to give you news and updates from the world of business. And Nancy has all those updates from the world of business. Over to you, Nancy.
Thanks, Mark. Here's all the business news. Well, the Union Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman held third pre-budget consultations with stakeholder groups from industry, services and trade, and the meeting was held to prepare a base for the forthcoming budget 2020-21. Along with the Finance Minister, the MOS Finance Anurag Thakur, Finance Secretary, Secretary Economic Affairs, Revenue Secretary, the Secretary DPIIT, Secretary Tourism, Secretary Commerce, CEA, Chairman CBDT, the Chairman CBIC also attended the meeting, among others. Now, the central government has released goods and services tax compensation of 35,298 crore rupees to states and union territories. The Union Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman has assured the states that the centre will not renege on the promise of the GST compensations. On the 4th of December, the minister had assured 8 states which were yet to receive the GST compensation from the centre since August this year that they would get their respective dues as early as possible. Remember, the GST Council, the highest decision-making body for indirect tax, is slated to hold its meeting on 18th of this month. And that's all the business news this afternoon. Mark, it's back to you for the rest of the news.
Thanks very much, Nancy. And now let's get your news from across the globe. Let's begin with news that's, in fact, let's begin with this story now. Moving on, news from across the globe. Boeing has said that it would temporarily suspend production of its globally grounded 737 MAX jets next month. The production of the jet had continued despite the model being grounded for 9 months after 2 deadly crashes. Boeing had been hoping to have the aircraft back in the air by the end of this year, but the US regulators made it clear that the planes would not be certified to return to the skies that quickly. More than 300 people died when 2 737 MAX aircraft crashed in Indonesia and Ethiopia after they reported to have problems with a new feature. In fact, it was the autopilot. And in Australia, firefighters urged residents to evacuate areas near the Gospers Mountain. This is as bushfires have razed almost 400,000 hectares, and those fires are now coming closer to residential parts of the region. The Gospers Mountain fire, which is a combination of several fires burning in the northwest of Sydney, stretches almost to Lithgow in New South Wales Central Coast. This large fire continues to burn on multiple fronts. Firefighters worked overnight to contain the blaze around Mount Wilson, Mount Thoma, the Birrambing and Blue Mountains. More than 100 fires were burning across New South Wales on Monday, with authorities particularly concerned about a heat wave from Wednesday onwards. Let's get you news from the world of sports now. And Tapas has all those updates from the world of sports. Over to you, Tapas.
Well, thank you so much, Mark. And let's get started with the second ODI. India will have to get their bowling combination right after thrashing that they got in Chennai when they take on a West Indies side in the second one-day international at Visakhapatnam. And they will be aiming to keep the 3-match series alive also. A series win would certainly raise Kieron Pollard's profile from a T20 freelancer to an able leader, but a blinder from Rohit Sharma or another 100 from Virat Kohli on a batting belter can't be ruled out.
It wasn't a night-managed bowling performance in Chennai by...
Well, moving on from cricket to something from football. Real Madrid will play Manchester City in the Champions League round of 16, while holders Liverpool face Atletico Madrid. The draw on Monday brought up some fascinating ties with the heavyweight clashes between England and Madrid's top clubs, arguably the pick of the bunch. Well, that's all from Sports Prime. Back to you for more news and updates, Mark.
Thanks very much, Tapas. And just a small clarification with regard to Pervez Musharraf. He was, in fact, the 10th president of Pakistan, and he was the president until 2008. He had imposed the emergency while he was the president. He was earlier the chief executive in 1999 when he deposed Nawaz Sharif as the leader, as the prime minister at that time. But let's get you some news now, live prime in our next segment. In Iran, the Autumn Leaves Festival was held in Isfahan. This is to celebrate the beautiful changing of leaves of the city. People gathered in the park to attend the second festival of leaves and colors and enjoy being in nature in autumn. The slightest gentle wind causes the autumn leaves to flap, making the trees look like they're dancing with golden light. The peak time to see the fall colors is the historical city of Isfahan in early to mid-December.
برگ‌های پاییزی بعضیا رو هم سر ذوق آورده بود. البته در بخش اصلی این جشنواره شرکت کنندگان با هم رقابتی داشتند تا با برگ‌های پاییزی خلاقانه ترین طرح‌ها رو بچینند.
Colorful Autumn Leaves Festival in Iran. And with that we conclude Midday Prime for today. Thanks very much for being with us. Namaskar.